Uh,
Okay. We're live now. Nobody say anything stupid, like BSL. Welcome to the Nothing Has Changed live stream. Please, no panicking, no freaking out. What am I
uh,
gonna do? I'm gonna share my
okay.
screen. If you're on from YouTube's, let us know in the chat that you exist. It'd be interesting to know how many people exist here just purely from the Hacker News drama and have no idea what Benthos is or what Bento is or what any of this drama is about, and you're here purely for the drama, because then if you're a majority here, I can really just zero in on that Hacker News drama. Let's make it a exciting Friday for everyone. Can I share my screen? Okay, right, I've got a screen share. Okay, so my intention was to just do a chill stream for the Benthos users. And I was just going to talk about what's actually changed from this acquisition. What just happened yesterday, by the way. How are we already doing Hacker News back and forths? I don't know. I haven't even had a chance. It's going to take me longer to read that blog post than it is for people to make forks, apparently. Okay, so is anybody on the voice channel? If you're watching on YouTube and you want to get in the voice channel, by the way, this is on our Discord, which I think is in the description. Please, we don't want too many people because it's going to be chaos. Is anybody in the voice chat here and not a Benthos user and has just come in for the drama? No judging. Just asking. I'm going to go ahead and assume, no, Dan, I'm going to go ahead and assume that most of us are Benthos users. So I'm just going to talk through roughly on a high level what's actually changed. So I've got a little picture here. It's not actually hand drawn, of essentially what we used to have. So on the left here is the Benthos repo, fully MIT licensed, and it had all the plugin APIs for all the various connectors, the whole connector ecosystem, which was vast. And it's all compiled into a Go binary. So we're using all of these Go third-party libraries. And what we do is we create a build artifact containing the entire Benthos plugin ecosystem into one thing. There are a few variants based on CGO support and things like that for very, very special edge cases. But for the most part, it was all there in the releases that we gave out. But there was a huge number of people who had custom builds, and that was fairly typical because that's the recommended way to have your own custom plugins. So what you would do is you would import the Benthos repo as a library, and you would use that library to register your plugins, and they would look exactly like any other Benthos plugin, so any other Benthos input or output or whatever. And then you would also build a custom binary out of that, which is the exact same as CLI. So all of your stuff plus whichever plugins you want to bring in from the original Benthos repo. So you're essentially using it as a library, but then you're also importing components from it that you want to include in your custom build. And then what you end up is a fully custom build. So I've just been running this repo pretty much on my own. We have a large number of contributors. We're all basically just doing this mostly voluntarily with various numbers of sponsors and other random sources of income, and just trying to juggle all of those at the same time. But obviously, I done got acquired. So the Benthos project has now become part of Redpanda Data. So the way that that's worked is architecturally, on a technical level, exactly what I was going to do anyway, with some minor obvious changes in brand and things like that. So what we have now is Benthos has been broken out into just the library. So now we're talking about Benthos as still MIT licensed, and what you can do is you use it to create plugins. So you would create like an input or an output or a process or whatever, and you can create any logic in there that you want. And then you can compile it into a binary that can run all those plugins. And what it's also responsible for is the entire streaming engine, integration test tooling, stuff like that, the documentation generation. So you register a plugin using the Go APIs, And then you can also then use that to generate a binary that then can create your documentation. It's obviously a bit of, we're going to add some nice stuff on top of what you've currently got there. So that's obviously going to improve. So people have their own customized documentation stuff. And then you've got the whole CLI is defined here inside this library. And then you've also got these stream builder APIs. So you can spawn and run your own Benthos instances in process and manage the entire life cycle. So there are lots of users of Benthos who do that currently. But all of that stuff means you've got to have your own custom binary. And what we've done is we've broken out the actual plugins themselves, so the large suite of third-party connectors. There's still some core ones inside the Benthos repo, so anything to do with brokering patterns or like mappings and stuff like that, that's still in the MIT license core base. But we've got this new repo. So what I've done is I've separated these with dashed lines to represent a library. And then we've got solid lines to represent an actual repo that's going to build a binary or an artifact or some sort of thing. Or yeah, you can do some other stuff with it as well. You can build like serverless stuff, all that kind of junk. Now, we've obviously changed the branding, but we've also changed the licenses. So the vast majority, all the plugins used to be MIT licensed. It was all part of the overall Benthos MIT license. It's just one license file in the root of the repo. The intention has always been to pull the plugins out so that they're a separate entity. And the main idea is we're going to fix a bunch of the problems in the original project regarding how many plugins we actually had in this one single module. I'll talk about that in more detail later if people want me to. But I'm just going to focus on what's actually happened now. But what we have is this large suite of plugins inside the Redpanda Connect repo. And this is almost all Apache v2. So there is a license change from MIT to Apache v2, but it's basically the same. Practically for people, it's still open source. You can do whatever you want with it. There are two plugins, the Snowflake output and the Splunk output. Those are the two that have been put as RCL license. So that's essentially an enterprise license. Which means it's not open source in the same way that the Apache v2 ones are. And the idea is right now, obviously we've just kind of put this out for people to go and look and scrutinize, but what we're going to do is a bit of development to make sure that each one of these individual plugins is importable individually. So you can just cherry pick exactly which, I mean, you can already cherry pick which ones you've got, but we'll just make it clearer when you're doing that, how the licenses work, because right now it's a bit confusing for people, I think, is the feedback we're getting today, which is perfectly fine. Sorry, we're getting questions. A link in the Discord. There's a link in the Discord in the description right now. I'm not sure where else it is, but you should have it. Let me know if it's not in the description. Let me just double check that. Yeah, the Discord invite should be in the description. Also, by the way, if anybody's in the chat channel, feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions and interrupt at any time. I won't be angry. I can't even access you physically anyway, so even if I was angry, there's no consequences to that. But yeah, so we're also going to add some enterprise features. So the license for the two enterprise plugins, we're also applying that license to some features that are going to be optional things inside this repository. So if you just take that binary, I think, I'm not a lawyer, but I think there's some implications of if you're reselling it, like if you're AWS and you've just taken this thing and you're reselling it, then that's a naughty. I'm not sure what else the implications are, but essentially it's not open source in the full sense for those specific features. But then what you can do today is you can still have your custom build. So exactly the same as we had before. You can have your custom build where you're using the plugin APIs of the MIT licensed library, and you're also using that for defining the CLI and for building your artifacts, all that stuff. But then what you can do is you can cherry pick the specific plugins that you want to include in your build and add more. So you can add whatever else you want. And that essentially frees you up to include any and only the plugins that you're interested in. And that's really the important thing, because obviously there's the organizational side. So company has bought open source project. Everybody's going to be a bit worried, a bit nervous. We've gone with pretty chill licenses here. It's not as if we've BSL'd everything, which is obviously an option on the table for an open source project like this. What we've done is we've kept the core engine MIT license. That means you don't have to worry at all about building plugins on top of this. There's no possibility of violating any licenses. You can do with this whatever you want. If we change the license tomorrow, you can always just grab this and fork it then if you want to. There's no restrictions here. It's all inside the plugins here, and it's obviously depending on the plugins. But there's only two. There's two that have an enterprise license. The rest of them don't. And you can always go and grab the old MIT versions of any of these plugins, and they will just work. You can just maintain them yourself if you want to take on that maintenance burden. It's fine. Bloblang remains MIT licensed. Yes, Bloblang is part of the core library, so it's MIT licensed. So what you could do, if you want to, is you could have a custom build that uses the Benthos core engine, build plugins that will work with anybody else using the Benthos core engine. They will all be compatible to compile into the same binary, and you can even cherry pick some Redpanda Connect ones, and then you can relicense them if you want to. You can have your own custom licenses. You can do whatever you want. So they can be MIT, whatever you want. Benedict Wilson, what plugins were relicensed? So specifically, all the any third-party connectors. I can show you the list now, actually. Hold on. Let's have a look. So I can bring you up the repo. So all the connectors here, these are all of this is the full suite of plugins that we had in Benthos core that have been moved over. So AMQP, Avro, all of these ones, Asia, the AWS. Everything here is now Apache v2, where it used to be MIT, except for Splunk and Snowflake. These are the two that have a custom license. So those two are the enterprise ones. What I'm going to do is, because this has just been moved basically from the old MIT repository, and we've kind of just moved it all, I very quickly just moved this out so that you can still access it the same way that we used to. So you used to be able to just import these packages individually, import them into your project, and then you just have the plugins. What I'm going to do eventually is we'll have these nicely isolated so they're individual modules, Go modules, so you can properly pick and choose which ones you're including, and you can see the licenses individually in the Go package thing, because that was some of the complaints we're getting today, is people don't understand when they just import all of the plugins, they don't know what the license implications are of that, which is fair enough. So yeah, we'll try and make that a little bit easier. But I mean, you can still cherry pick the individual ones that you want that are enterprise licensed. So there's nothing stopping you from having a custom build today that just includes whatever bundle of plugins. You can even just take the old ones, just rename the import path to be this, Redpanda data /Benthos, and then they will compile just the same as all the other plugins in the ecosystem. Why that makes sense technically, if you've been a maintainer of the Benthos code base and you've seen how things have progressed over time, you'll probably have seen that as time has gone on, we have had to do more and more hacks in the repo in order to counter the fact that various client libraries are just a bit weird and they do weird things. So for example, one thing that we keep hitting is this dependency. I can show you in here actually in our Go mod. 99design/keyring. If you import that library, or you import a library that imports that library, then hey, you're going to have random processes spawn every time your process runs. And we found that people were, I can't remember which operating system it was, but I think it might have been BSD. If you were running Benthos with BSD, you were getting random processes and they weren't shutting down, and it was eventually causing your machine to crash. So we had to get rid of this, but every now and then, one of our many third-party dependencies would bring this in as a third-party dependency, and there's basically nothing you can do about it. So we're having to put this manual replace in, but obviously it's something that you're constantly having to document to people to make them understand that if you're going to import a vast number of the plugins, eventually you're going to hit the same thing. You need to have that in your Go mod. So it's just awkward to work with. There's lots of other problems. So random client libraries will break backwards compatibility, for example, and it means that now your build no longer builds. Stuff like that. It's just it's too much maintenance effort to include all of that logic, all of those client libraries in the same binary and do it for free and support at the same pace that you were before all the issues and pull requests that are coming in as they're coming in. So the plan has always been to allow people to define suites of plugins in their own repo, and then users can choose which ones they're going to compile into their binaries. We still like the idea of compiling the plugins in as like a first class system for plugins. You're not limited to that, obviously. There's like a WebAssembly and all the other ways that you can get plugins in. But most people want to compile their plugins and have a proper build. So we still want to support that, obviously. So the idea has always been that people are going to be able to cherry pick exactly where their repos come from. So, I mean, you imagine a world where, okay, so there's, Redpanda Connect suite, but if you want to have a custom build, maybe there's another company that also has a custom build, and maybe you're going to cherry pick some of their repos as well. So you're going to use them as a dependency, and maybe hey, they're gonna a bit of a handshake going on here. They're gonna do the same to you. Whoa, didn't expect that, did you? And the idea is that we can all just share these plugin implementations because they're all using the same repo, which is MIT licensed as the core engine. Now, obviously, some people have expressed concern about license changes. Oh my God, it sounds very scary. Whoa, what's going on here? What if they do a rug pull on Benthos, the core engine as well? Anything can happen. Obviously, I would have said a year ago, anything can happen. Obviously, I have no intention of changing the licenses as an individual, but that doesn't mean things can't change. But the idea is you can just fork this if it ever came to it. But the idea is if you're building your plugins on this MIT licensed engine right now, as the engine evolves over time, if that ever did happen, you could just immediately move your plugins to the new thing and just change the import path.
Ash, can I ask a question?
Yep, go ahead.
Would it have been better to just split up the whatever is in Redpanda Connect at the moment and split it up into two different repositories?
As in, so break Redpanda Connect into two separate things as well?
Yeah, because then you have like a single license for per repository. That's one thing, and also you keep the non-enterprisey stuff out of it. That way you like a bit like an add-on on top of Benthos, like Benthos add-ons, for example.
If we have separate Go modules, you'll get the same thing because we will have each module has a separate license. So when you import it through Go, so the issue that got raised today is when you look at Go package for the Redpanda Connect repo.
Staram się przeczytać, staram się też dawać mojej córce takie dzieciństwo i taką relację opartą w szacunku po prostu budować, żeby ona nigdy się nie bała przyznać.
I'm going to mute that person. I'm assuming that's not a question. I'm sorry, I only speak English. I'm sorry. But yeah, so we could potentially break it out, but it's a bit awkward for us to maintain it that way. The enterprise features are just going to be separate, like they're separate packages. So the suite of plugins, you can just pull them in individually right now with their individual licenses, but obviously Go package doesn't flag that because it just sees one license definition for the repo. So we're going to break it down to individual Go modules. So you'll have an explicit license for each one that you bring in. But I mean, the idea is that you can break them out if you want to. Like, there's nothing stopping somebody from maintaining their own separate fork or whatever. If you want to have a separate one, because that's ultimately the idea, the goal, right? Is people have their own suites of connectors that people can pick and choose if they want to compile their own binary. We don't have to maintain all of them in one massive repo, but yeah, so on the technical reasons, there's obviously more as well. The plugin gets massive. So I think we were reaching about 100 meg just for the overall build, which is fine when you want to support all of those things, but obviously people are going to be cherry picking their individual plugins anyway, so why do they also have to manage the dependency graphs of all those dependencies, that sort of stuff. Sorry, did I actually answer your question there? Is that satisfactory, or? Because it's more complicated from your perspective if you're looking at it as a human, because you have to go and dig into where the licenses are and stuff, I guess. But the idea is once we've broken out into modules, you'll just be able to see on the Go module page on Go package.
Thank you, I'm very satisfied.
We have chat questions. Benedict Wilson, 2 cents. I'm actually writing a blog post about Benthos at the moment. Big fan and love your work, Ash. Would you still provide binaries for a community build? I don't think we intend to maintain a separate binary. It's all just going to be part of Redpanda itself. So you'll be able to do RPK Connect right now is the command. It's all just one thing baked in. But obviously the build artifacts, it's just a GitHub action that hits Go releases. So it's really easy to maintain your own build of all of this stuff. It's just libraries and Docker files and that sort of stuff. All of that stuff still exists. It's still there. You can cherry pick and build it, because the whole point of the way that the plugin system works when you're building your custom binaries, you have to make it really easy for you to do that, and a good user experience for managing your own custom build. So all of that stuff is still there. It all still exists. It's all still part of this MIT license repo. So I don't think it's something that Redpanda is going to be interested in, because obviously they've got their own flavor of it. But there's nothing stopping community builds from happening. And it's very easy. You just have a repo with just the Go releaser artifact or whatever, or even you don't even have to have a fork. You just use it as a library and then copy the Go releaser and GitHub actions over. More questions. Is it possible that Redpanda could move existing plugins which are now under the Apache license to the enterprise? So, I mean, anything's possible, right? I could have changed everything to an enterprise license a month ago if I wanted to. Obviously, it's all about incentives. It's a complicated world out there, especially for businesses what have to make money. But obviously, it's a commercial entity that is stewarding a project, and this is our announcement of this is what the state of play is. This is what we're doing. Obviously, there's a lot of community impact on changing licenses. So I can't give you like a legal guarantee that they can't change anything, because you can change anything. But what I'm saying is, if they did, you could just copy all the plugins and build your own custom plugin, and you wouldn't be losing compatibility with any other plugins in the ecosystem. You're not giving anything up by doing that. It just means you now are maintaining those plugins rather than just one single entity. Do you plan something like a centralized plugin catalog then, similar to Terraform maybe? So that's entirely possible. Basically, all it is an import path for plugins as it currently stands. So if you define a plugin, you host it on GitHub, it's just an import path, and it's very easy to bundle that into a build. I've actually already got a repo that's essentially a tool for doing exactly that. So you just give it a list of all the plugins that you want to import, and it will just spit out the binary for you. That's not being used anywhere as far as I'm aware, but there's no reason why somebody couldn't have like a ecosystem tool that goes and aggregates all of these things and gives you like a marketplace for them. It's all technically possible. I'm not sure Redpanda are going to be bothered enough to do that. I don't think it's something they're going to be pushing. Will you do a repo template? There actually already is one. So there's the Benthos plugin example repo. That's going to be updated to use the new APIs and stuff. So yeah, there's exactly that. It's essentially a repo with a few custom plugins and then a main.go file, and it shows you how to build it and all that stuff. So yes, there is a template essentially. Benthos' existing Kubernetes support like the operator isn't stable. Do you think with Redpanda's backing now there will be more development focus on that? Yes, I think there probably will be. I think it's a good bet. The intention is to have obviously lots and lots of ways to deploy Benthos. I mean, Benthos is pretty easy to deploy in general because it's stateless, which is why we haven't really needed to put a huge amount of tooling out there for that sort of stuff. But yes, I think they probably will have some nicely supported Kubernetes stuff. Any more questions on the chat? Don't be shy now, chat.
I guess a piggyback question. So does that mean that the community Helm charts as they are today are still standalone, or are they going to try to assimilate those as well?
Good question. I think basically we're at a point where we haven't even thought about that yet. So I think it probably makes sense to update it at the very least so people can use it. But I'm not 100% sure what the plan is.
Okay.
But we'll find out soon, I guess. Hopefully. Is there a long-term plan for Studio? So Studio is, so Studio is closed source. And it's probably going to be, so what we're probably going to do is break it down and productize it in lots and lots of bits. I'm not 100% sure what the licenses are going to be for those bits, where they're ending up, but if people want to go check out Redpanda console right now, you will already see they're adding in lots and lots of cool features for building Benthos plugins. You can actually get autocomplete in console right now, which is pretty cool, and that's the intention going forward. So basically what we're intending to do with this partnership, this acquisition, this swallowing of the blob is essentially just build a bunch of cool tooling on top of Benthos as it currently is, in ways that we just haven't had the capacity to do before. So yes, things like a nice autocomplete editor, a nice visual editing experience, those sorts of things, better diagnostics tools and all that kind of stuff. Those are all things that we're going to be thinking about and hopefully building over time. Will there be more developers to help you with Benthos maintenance? Yes, I believe there will be. We've obviously already got a bunch of maintainers in the community, so the intention is to get people on top of that and also try and support those people a bit better. Obviously, when I'm on my own and I'm trying to survive and maintaining this project on my own, then there's not really an awful lot that I can do to help people who are also part of that. But obviously now we're in a situation where, one of the big intentions of an acquisition like this is to put more resources to adding more people onto the project and getting things moving a bit faster. We still do Warpstreams from time to time. I intend to. My baby, luckily, went to sleep 15 minutes before this stream without screaming for a whole hour. How often that's going to happen, I don't know. But yeah, I'll hopefully be doing more blob streams, just like before, basically. Same sort of content, if that's a good thing or not. They were a bit foolish making such overt changes after the HashiCorp debacle. Community will move to safer grounds. I think it's difficult because if you intend to make changes, so it's a bit of a chicken egg, right? So you can't announce the acquisition without showing people what's going to change, because they will panic, because they're going to assume that you're going to BSL everything, or you're going to enterprise license everything, or heaven forbid you're just going to close source everything, right? they'll expect the worst. So what you want to do is, if you're not going to do that, if you're going to do something that's actually pretty chill, you want to make sure that people can see that. So that's what we've done. We've made sure that the acquisition announcement and all the repo changes all happen at the same time. And that includes obviously enterprise licensing, the things that we're going to enterprise license, even though nothing's changed on them yet. Obviously, we're going to be reworking them and making them better in a lot of ways. But obviously that hasn't happened yet. But the intention is we want them to be enterprise licensed before we've done that, because then otherwise it's a rug pull, right? You've made a change that seemingly came out of nowhere. Whereas what we've done here is we've set out the way that all these repos are going to be structured, and we've told people explicitly this is how it looks. Now I can't tell you that that's how it's going to be forever, because I don't know what forever looks like. But the whole purpose of doing things this way is so that people can see and judge for themselves how things are going to be laid out. So, anybody looking at this and thinking, oh, actually, we'd like to just maintain our own Snowflake output, but it looks like we can, that's fine. Maybe that's the conversation being had. Or maybe somebody's just going to look at this and say, like, absolutely not, we cannot deal with this. We cannot call it Redpanda Connect. And that's fine. We've shown people what the changes are. It's up to you if you're okay with that or not. I think the idea of the sort of paranoia around what if there's a license change? What if there's a license change? You're never out of that. The only way that you could be out of that is if you forced people to work on an open source project forever and they are legally unable to escape that. Otherwise, there's always going to be the possibility. I mean, I could have just burnt out a month ago and decided I'm not going to run the project anymore, and who knows what would have happened. It could have just been swallowed up by some other organization who are going to maintain it under BSL, and that's just it. Take it or leave it. There's no guarantees in any of this stuff. Obviously, it's great when it lasts a long time. We've been going for like 10 years or something on an MIT license, which is pretty crazy. But I think overall, this is a pretty nice deal. It's a pretty sweet situation. There's literally 2 enterprise plugins. Take it or leave it. You can take the Apache ones and not the enterprise ones, and you can build your own and maintain your own replacements for the enterprise ones if you want to. I'm not going to stop you. I wish I could. I wish I could come to you and go, no, don't do that. But I'm just not that. I use feet. I can't make the rounds that quickly. I'm committed to keep contributing to the project long term and also offering community support to the best of my ability. I'll keep being a freelance engineer. Mihai is an absolute god, veteran of the Benthos open source code base, and thank you for everything you have done up until now. You've answered some brutal questions in the questions channel that I have shied away from. If you've been a Benthos user, you definitely know who Mihai is. Dan, and I have started running Benthos at the core. I will keep committed to Benthos as well, although more on the NATS side. So I definitely think that there's a lot of nervousness from NATS users. So right now, all the NATS plugins are Apache v2 and Redpanda Connect. But like I said, there's nothing stopping maintainers from having their own maintained suite of NATS components, and people can pick and choose which ones they're going to use. So they could use all of the Apache v2 components in Redpanda Connect except the NATS ones, and they can choose to use somebody else's NATS ones if they want to. It's all just about who's on the hook for maintaining what, and what features are you choosing as a user when you're building your custom builds and running your own flavor. If I make a Benthos tattoo, may I win a lifetime license of this new product? I don't sell the product. I unfortunately don't have much influence over that either, I don't believe. But I will personally give you 1 free sticker if you can show me a Benthos tattoo. I might, depending on the tattoo, give you 2 stickers and maybe a badge. Only if it's on your forehead. Any more questions? Any more concerns? Any more hurt? Any more drama? I haven't obviously had a chance to check out how that Hacker News post is going. I'm assuming the drama is ongoing. Do we want to just get straight into a drama stream now?
Emojis gets brought up every live stream. I don't see why this shouldn't be an exception.
There possibly will be more emojis. We still need to get them in the Redpanda community Slack. But obviously Discord is chock full of emojis. We'll probably add some Redpanda emojis as well, and then maybe some crossovers if we can. But yeah, the flow of emojis will not be drying up anytime soon.
Maybe
the most hands and Inkscape.
Maybe the most important question of all, like, what is going to be the new logo?
Well, yes. Stay tuned. There will be something. There will be a little something. There's probably going to be lots of different images. Obviously, Redpanda's got the Red Panda. Benthos has got the blobfish still. But there's probably going to be loads of imagery and swag of various crossovers. Hopefully, anyway. If I can make that happen, I absolutely will. So you go, what if tomorrow Yahoo acquires Redpanda? Well, we could get bought by anybody. We could get bought by Microsoft. Then what? Back to MIT. I don't know. Maybe I'll buy us. I'll buy us and bring us all back to MIT.
I think Yahoo's a stretch.
I'd give them a good deal. Just for nostalgia's sake. Any more questions? Any more whinging? Any more concerns? Thoughts? Ideas? We're just going to sit in silence. Still on Hacker News front page. We're doing all right. Various acquisition ideas. These are all good. Please get in touch with VCs. I'm sure they'll be interested in all of these ideas. Does anybody want to go into the technical bits? I'm assuming no one does. I'm not really sure I have the energy for such endeavors. Warpstream buying Redpanda. Then what would the drama look like? Would the drama get worse? So how rich are you now? I am so rich. I can don my Redpanda swag. I think I've got swag for every day. Every day of the week, I have a piece of Redpanda swag. This is it. This is the entirety of the deal. Actually, no, it's not. This isn't the entirety of the deal, because I also have a Redpanda backpack.
The Ash Lord gets richer and richer every day.
But I am losing my blobfish. I'm having to give up my stickers because we're going to need them for events. So I've lost, in the process of gaining Redpanda swag, I have lost some blobfish swag. Are you going to get a blobfish aquarium? I don't know if I want to actually own a blobfish, to be honest. I'm going to be brutally honest. I think I'm pretty happy with my my plushie one. Warpstream relicensing to GPL. That would be interesting. That would be very interesting. I think that would basically eliminate something like 90% of Benthos users from using it, but obviously they're free to do that. I mean, that's the thing, right? Almost everybody who's using Benthos on a significant level is doing the custom build thing because they have a bunch of custom logic that they can't do without and they can't expose it. It's, you know, custom secrets or whatever, like they just cannot make that stuff public. So they have to have a custom build, and therefore it has to be built upon the foundation of MIT. so that they're not on the hook for arbitrarily sharing it. There's stuff that's probably useless to the rest of the world. So yeah, I mean, if we GPL'd it, then it basically kills the project overnight, unfortunately. But, we can have a bit of fun playing with Discord bots and things, which is what I use it for. I could still do that. When do you expect the initial churn in the repos to settle? That's a good question. As in, are you talking about the APIs themselves having to change, as in like compatibility and stuff, or in terms of community, people choosing which ones they're gonna run with?
Things moving around, getting removed from one to the other, and so on.
That's done as far as I'm aware. So basically, when we moved, we obviously have a new module name. So github.com/redpandadata/benthos. So obviously you get a chance to do some breaking changes because you're not technically breaking semantic versioning, but the MIT licensed core base is semantic versioned. So we're not going to be taking anything out without incrementing that version. But obviously, decisions might be made around tidying things up or neatening things. We might choose to break some things in order to fix some things. But we're still going to be following semantic versioning, which means we're going to be doing that obviously reluctantly, just like before. So, I mean, we're on version 4 now, major version 4. And we've probably been on that for a couple of years. So I'm hoping that we can do everything that we want to in the foreseeable future without making breaking changes. So I think this is it. I would be surprised if we had to make significant breaking changes to anything. What we might do is we might slowly deprecate some of this stuff. So one thing, for example, is the CLI is just wholesale. Like you take it or leave it. So when you run the CLI in your custom build, it looks like every other Benthos distribution, but doesn't necessarily have to be the case. So what we might do is break down the bits that make up the CLI and just expose those into the public API. So you can kind of build your own CLI however you want, so your organization can have it work the way that works for you. Just joined for the free limited edition shirt. I'm going to be really angry if there's shirts for this, because I haven't been given a shirt specifically for the stream, and I doubt I'm going to get one. With GPL, it should be okay as long as you only distribute inside your company, as far as I understand. So as long as you're not, because basically these people, they're selling it. Like they're not just, bundling it up and then using it for internal stuff. They're effectively in a situation where they are selling a product that's built upon Benthos, which is fine. Like that's why it exists the way it is. That's what it's for. So I still think that would probably eliminate a large number of people. But kind of blurred lines, kind of a bit difficult to know exactly. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer. So you just said Benthos Connect. Basically, so there's one thing I haven't covered in this stream is, so the way that we're bundling it, so the CLI is the exact same, we've added a few bits, but the CLI is the exact same as it was before. There is one minor change. So the APIs to the core plugin APIs is the exact same. You just have to do a name change. The plugin, the way that you import the plugins from Redpanda Connect is the exact same as you were doing it with Benthos. You just changed the imports. So, for example, if you were importing component/all from the old repo, you can just do that on Redpanda Connect and you get all the same stuff. But obviously that includes the enterprise license stuff as well. I'll try and make it so that there's like an equivalent for all that is just the non-enterprisey stuff, so you can just import that if you're not going to use the enterprisey stuff. But that's obviously to do. But yeah, in terms of API, it's the exact same. The way that the builds work right now is when you build Redpanda Connect from the repo, you get a binary called Redpanda Connect, and it works the exact same as Benthos does. So same CLI, same arguments, same parameters, all of that stuff. But the change is in the way that we distribute it right now is we're actually bundling it with RPK, which is essentially Redpanda, So you have the full suite when you download those binaries, and that includes the Docker image and all of that stuff. So if you're using our builds of the binary and all those things, the command is now rpk connect, and then run if you want to run a config. The arguments are in the README for the Connect repo, and the examples and stuff in the documentations obviously reflect the new way that it works. But other than that name change, it's basically the same thing. Christina says, I sent out the order of t-shirts 2 days ago. Expect them in 2 weeks, and then they start getting dished out. So if you live on the moon, I think that's probably, what, a month? Bezos can get it to you. I think that's Amazon Prime. How are you going to approach managing GitHub issues that exist in the Connect repository but are meant for the core Benthos repo? So that's a really good question. The overwhelming majority of pull requests and issues at a glance are for connectors. So they're either people asking for new plugins to be made, or changes to existing plugins, or they are looking to just add fields and stuff to things. Those are obviously going to stay in the Connect repo. So we've moved the old Benthos. That got this got moved to this, and then this got spun off as a separate fork. And that means all of the issues are in here now. The vast majority of them should probably stay there because they are for connectors. But the ones that are for the core engine will need to get moved. We'll need to transfer them. I'm not actually sure what that looks like on GitHub, but I'm hoping that's not going to be a huge problem. And the same with any pull request issues. It'll all be the same thing. We'll start moving them over to the core engine. To be honest, though, the core engine is quite stable, and it doesn't really seem to change much. Christina says, I'm going to get a t-shirt as well. Fantastic news. I can shut the stream down right now. Oh, I just realized I'm showing you guys the diagram, but I'm not actually sharing it. Sorry. So the core engine has been moved into Redpanda Connect, which means all the issues came with it and all the pull requests. And then this Benthos repo got spun off from that, which means we'll need to move any relevant issues from Redpanda Connect to Benthos. But like I said, I think it's probably going to be a relatively small subset of the issues and pull requests, because most of them are just asking for new connectors and features on top of the connectors. The overall plugin architecture is relatively stable. What will be your role in direction for the project, deciding what to work on next or what to prioritize? So that's a good question. It's one of those see how it goes things. I think basically I am obviously leading the project still. And my intention is to have more hands on deck, and we'll be able to build more stuff out. So it's not just going to be a small subset of people doing the vast majority of the functionality. To be honest, we're probably going to be doing a lot of work on pull requests, because one of the things that I haven't been able to do in my capacity as an individual is work through lots and lots of pull requests. So I think probably one of my personal goals is to work through those at a much quicker pace than before, because my time will be freed up a little bit from all the other admin tasks I was having to do. But yeah, essentially I'm still going to be working on new features for both in terms of the plugin ecosystem, but also the core engine, and just general maintenance and stewarding of the project. So does accepting new plugins stay the same, or is there a shift to allow plugins outside of the Benthos repo? Yes, so the intention is that plugins are all going to be outside of the Benthos repo. The only exception is the things that have been part of the Pure package and the IO ones, because you can't really have a working Benthos without those plugins. So for example, brokering patterns and stuff like that, I consider that to be a core feature of the Benthos streaming engine. And you couldn't really have it without those core components. But also, they can't really exist as normal plugins because they have to really dig into the internals. which would be difficult to expose on the public APIs, just because they're so intimately related to the very nuanced bits of internal. So yeah, the core plugins will stay within the MIT, but anything that's third party, specifically stuff that's using third party client libraries, all of that is out into the Redpanda Connect repo. And yeah, like I said, it's going to be up to you which ones you include in your builds and whether you pick and choose plugins from other builds, other ecosystems, that sort of stuff. If that makes sense.
Is there a way to update the documentation to reflect like which ones are part of core and which ones are part of the Redpanda Connect one?
Good question. So specifically in the Redpanda docs, we're going to add the ability to. So right now there's the ability to specify the stability of each plugin, which is very vague intentionally because obviously I was on my own supporting all this stuff. So I wanted it to be very vague how supported all these plugins are. So we used to have experimental, beta, and stable as markers for each individual plugin implementation, where it's at in terms of how likely it is to explode your computer and murder your family. So we're going to add the ability to specify as well, like the difference between like an enterprise supported, community supported, and core plugin. So yeah, that's going to come up, and that will be reflected in Redpanda's documentation. So Redpanda Connect will document all those changes, but also if you want to generate your own docs and host those yourself, you'll be able to specify all that stuff in both the plugins that you're importing and also the plugins that you're defining. You'll be able to specify that sort of stuff. Lovely, lovely docs. Everybody loves docs talk. Any more questionroonies? My kid's still asleep. I did not expect that tonight. Do you expect tooling to discover plugins, kind of like a marketplace? So I don't think Redpanda's going to build that. We're kind of maintaining our own thing. We're going to put all our energy into that and maintaining the MIT core engine. But all the all the necessary technical requirements are there for people to make this. So if somebody wants to, I mean, I would probably even recommend it be some independent entity. If they want to host a marketplace for this stuff, everything is there, and that includes the ability to build from that marketplace. So if you imagine like a place where you can pick and choose which connectors you're going to use from which plugin ecosystems, and then you want to click a button and it builds it for you, and then you download it. That's entirely feasible on a technical level right now. It's just somebody needs to actually build it and manage it and be responsible for it, which is obviously a big ask. So I'm not expecting anybody to do that overnight, but everything's there if they want to do it. How do you learn all this? Pain and suffering. I think stream processing in particular is one of those. It's not the educational material around stream processing is not particularly good. So you imagine like you were doing control systems engineering like 200 years ago, figuring out that, oh, if I put a spring on this, it goes all wobbly and unstable. We're kind of like that with stream processing now, where the majority of understanding of how this stuff works in production and what can go wrong and when it goes wrong and how it goes wrong and how to avoid that, it's almost all from experimentation and discovery firsthand, which is not good. That's not a good situation. So now we rely, most people have to rely on tools to just do all that stuff for them. Hence a project like Benthos existing in the first place. But ideally what we need to have is good educational material so you can kind of understand that. So the main things that I'm talking about are things like understanding, because everybody, like anybody in distributed computing knows like horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. What does that actually look like on a technical level? What are you actually doing when you write software that vertically scales and horizontally scales? But in stream processing, you have to think about things like back pressure, delivery guarantees, ordering, throughput, latency, auto recovery, state, where does state exist, all those things. And they're all non-trivial, and solving one makes the others more complicated potentially. So if you solve back pressure, for example, it can make delivery guarantees harder. And likewise, if you solve delivery guarantees, it could make back pressure really bad. And suddenly, you can flood memory if your output goes offline, that sort of stuff. So I think what we want in a utopian society where every child of 5 has built their first stream processor, we just need better educational materials about all of those concepts and how to solve them. But it doesn't help that a lot of that stuff is kind of obfuscated. So I've got videos, for example, the dodgy state of delivery guarantees, where I kind of lay into some of the terminology that we've got right now, because I don't think we're particularly helped by the terminology as it currently exists. I think we're hindered, in fact, I would say. But it's going to be a long time. So right now, if somebody wants to learn about stream processing right now, I would say just do a bunch of stuff and you'll get it. You'll work it out. Would it be worth the time to update the Benthos dev/Benthos plugin example repository for Redpanda? Yes, that is exactly on my to-do list. I'm going to try my hardest to fit that in for next week. I mean, it's not going to be huge changes, but it's more the documentation around it. I also want to expand it a bit, just so there's a bit more hand-holding in the repo. So you can ideally just send somebody to the repo and they'll know how to make a plugin and make a build, that sort of stuff. And then obviously I'm going to have to make a new video, because once all the stuff has changed, then the video has to change as well. To be honest, the video that we've already got for writing plugins is old. So it already needed updating anyway. There will be online training or even a certification like Oracle. I would be a little bit sad, to be honest, if there was ever like a Benthos certification, because in my mind it should be easy enough that you don't need it. But yeah, maybe one day I'll have to wear a suit. I'll have to judge, I'll have to mark people's papers and wear a suit. Dan says lag. What are you on about?
Yeah, it was just as a reply to what you were saying. Like in event-driven systems, that lag is one of the
Oh yeah.
the biggest ones that can bite you hard. Anyway.
Are we done? How do we feel, audience? Are we finished? Any more questions? I haven't had an awful lot of drama in the chat. Can somebody hurl some insults or something?
Can you babysit my daughter later today?
If your daughter's asleep, sure. I just put her in the room with my kid.
He is not.
Come on, somebody say something angry.
Shut up.
Be mad. Yeah, but I know you're not.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, but now it's Redpanda, and we can't say anything inappropriate anymore.
I'm pretty sure you can. In fact,
Well, yeah, I can, but like I have too much respect for everyone there. So
we haven't expanded the moderator team yet, so.
Help. What do you mean? Like the time is now. Like forget about next talks. It's
Okay, I'm muting everybody right now. Oh, hold on, we've got more questions. Metrics tracing and logging, yes, obviously metrics tracing and logging. You've got to get all that in there as well, and you've got to make use of it, and you've got to understand what to look for when things go wrong. Is your LinkedIn blowing up or what? Probably. I daren't open it, to be honest. I think no good will come of it if I open my LinkedIn. People can come and find me in person. I don't know. Kason says Benthos better. They haven't even fixed the website yet. They need to at least get the website some polish. I think they did that in a bit
That's
of a hurry.
it. I'm forking the repo and calling it Garbanzo.
I'll fork your fork.
Fine, do it. See if I care.
Jeff now has thought leader in the data streaming industry in his LinkedIn bio.
I'm pretty
End
sure we
me.
can. I'm pretty sure we can create like a Benthos configuration that will generate forks on GitHub automatically.
And the Hacker News blog post as well.
Are we about to fork bomb Microsoft?
Well, what could possibly go wrong?
I mean, I'm in if that's what we're doing.
You guys can do
Well,
whatever you
sounds
want.
like it is weekend after all.
You want spicy questions. So do you personally like Redpanda as a product? Redpanda saved me, frankly. I'm not even going to lie. You can probably go back in the commit history and you can find it. But I was spending... So one of the problems with having one repo with all the various connectors and plugins and everything baked in is I have to run integration tests for every single one of those connectors. That includes AWS, that includes GCP, that includes Kafka, and I've probably lost, let me think about this. I've probably lost 2 weeks of my life, at least, spread across the years to trying to get integration tests to work nicely on a humble machine, what I can afford as a solo open source developer, and it not melt my machine and the networking works. And I just couldn't do it. I went through like 5 iterations of reworking how the integration tests for Kafka kicked in, and I couldn't deal with it. I was actually ready to just give up and just say it's not tested, and that's it. Sorry. And then Redpanda came along and completely changed everything. So I suddenly was able to actually run it. That includes just the networking stuff. Because obviously back then, not having Zookeeper was a massive deal. That was huge. But also just the performance and all that stuff. 2 weeks is nothing. So I'm not talking about 2 weeks in terms of like working a job 2 weeks. I'm talking about 2 weeks in terms of the raw time. So 24 hours times 7 hours of me spending trying to fix the plugin APIs and get them to work for the integration tests for Kafka. But yeah, it absolutely rescued me because it basically meant that I could actually run the integration tests, which meant I was more confident, merging people's pull requests and making changes and stuff. So yeah, I've loved Redpanda for a long time. Extra spicy stuff. No, don't scroll, chat. No, chat scrolled. Warpstream is too busy prepping Bento, not here. Possibly. I don't think they need to do an awful lot. They just need to fix the website, and fix the logo, get somebody to actually make one. I could have done it. They didn't ask me to do it. I saw your video on Benthos when I was in middle school, and now I'm in high school. Why don't they use it as educational materials? There is a university course that gets people to do Benthos stuff. You like Nats better though, don't you? Cheeky. I am a lover of Nats. I love Synadia. I love Nats. I think Nats is a fantastic product. I think Redpanda is a fantastic product. Both similar space, similar kind of use cases. I've done demos with both because I reach for them both. They're very easy to set stuff up. Obviously, if you're already in the Kafka ecosystem, obviously there's a lot of pull towards staying in the Kafka ecosystem. If you're using schema registry, for example, obviously Redpanda is just a drop-in replacement for all of that. Makes it very juicy. If you need the ordering guarantees, it's very juicy. But obviously, as a protocol, Kafka is old. and there's a lot to it. So Nats can really slip in quite nicely there. I mean, my opinions obviously haven't changed just because of the acquisition, but I mean, I love both these products anyway. Obviously, I wish Redpanda was just fully MIT, but I also understand the reasons behind all the licensing stuff. As an open source maintainer, what has lived that life? As glamorous as it is, I used to walk up to Hollywood celebrities and they'd say, "Oh, he's an open source developer. Can I have your signature? Can I have your SHA hash from your SSH?" And I would say, "Oh, move along." I love the lifestyle, but obviously I understand it's pretty tough, especially when you need to make cash dollars. I really don't like that 2 weeks is nothing. That's grated me more than anything here. 2 weeks of my life that I wasn't getting paid for. Nobody was paying me to maintain the integration tests for my open source project. That was grim. I think the reality of open source is it's great because like working for free isn't, it's not that bad, especially when you've got good sponsors. Shout out Snadia, obviously. But there are dark times when you're spending a lot of time working on something that you don't actually like. I don't like doing integration tests. And I don't like setting up Kafka and Zookeeper. I don't enjoy that at all. And there I am in my evenings when I'd rather be spending time with my family, thinking that in order to make the next day be productive, I have to sit here now and figure out why Zookeeper seems to be dying on me when I'm trying to run my integration tests and merge a pull request. Spicy question: did Warpstream offer? There's a offer to acquire Benthos. That's a really good question. I think you can probably read their blog post and maybe read between the lines on that. I'm going to stop talking there. read their blog post and make up your own mind on all this stuff. To be honest, spending money on integration tests for OSS that is not funded is where I would draw the line. Props to you for doing it. So it's not like, because the thing is, I was living, I was living comfortably, and in my mind, I still think it's worth it because you're too late. We know now. You don't know anything. You know nothing. Microsoft wanted to buy me. They were calling me every day. Please. But yeah, I mean, it's a really cool lifestyle because you've got your project. Everything that you work on is public, which is great. Yes, okay. So 2 weeks of your life spent doing something that you don't enjoy, and you're not getting paid directly. But obviously, I was alive. I was living. I did have an income that was kind of loosely tied to the overall endeavor, and that's work that you get to keep forever. It exists forever. Because even if some company comes along and buys it and changes the licenses, well, that code still exists. It's still there. It's source controlled. It's still MIT. You can take it wherever you want. So if you want to work at another company and you want to reuse it, then you can reuse it. And that's what I liked about the open source experience. If I was going to summarize it into one cool thing, one massive advantage to spending your life on open source than just working on proprietary stuff, is you're sacrificing a lot. But the work that you're putting in is out there forever. You won't change jobs and then suddenly everything you've worked on is gone and it's a clean slate. And that's rare in software engineering. We normally switch jobs every 2 years or so. Churn is incredible in our industry. And that means that you never really get to see a project that you've worked on last more than 5 to 10 years, unless you choose to stay at an organization. And there's sacrifices to that, right? If you stay at an organization for 5 to 10 years, obviously there might be massive advantages depending on where you are. But for most people, that's going to be they're going to be disadvantaged for that. So, you know, open source is fantastic because all the effort that you're putting in, you're always you could get a real job where you're doing something completely different, but that code's still there. You can still use it and watch it grow if you want to go back to it. And Benthos is a project that I've been able to work on and see evolve over 10 years. All the refactors I've done, all the restructuring, all of the, you know, high level product decisions I've made around it, all of those things have evolved over 10 years. And, you know, that's reflected in it now. Like what it is today is reflected in those 10 years. I would not have been able to have that experience with like a 2-year gig. So they're all salty, haha. This is the drama I was talking about. This is the angry Hacker News drama that we've all come here for. Are you open to talking about the acquisition timeline? Like when did this proposal from Redpanda start? Have you denied other acquisitions over the years? So I've known Alex from Redpanda for a long time. So since I started using it, we've basically been in contact. But I've had contact with lots of other companies, other startups. When you've got a project of this size that's integrating with lots of other ones, you'll always have constant connections with the people running the other projects. I think my biggest regret with Benthos is not reaching out to companies earlier, because I just assumed they wouldn't be interested in talking to me. But the reality is they will always, if they know about you, they'll always interact because they're usually full of happy people who want to connect and share stories and do blog posts and all that. But, you know, I've been talking to loads of founders, and obviously that has always included conversations akin to, hey, do you want to just join us? You seem to be just some dude on the internet on your own. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? And people saying like, are you VC funded? And I'm like, no. And they're like, what? What's going on here? What's wrong with him? We need to acquire him right now. He needs rescuing. But obviously, I was never in a position where I had to do that. If you read the Benthos blog over the years, you'll see that I've kind of gone over all of these different options. You know, VC funding, bootstrapping a SaaS company or something like that, and you know, joining another company. Those are all things that have always been kind of like on the table, constantly waved in front of me with various different proposals from various different companies. But obviously, the time felt good at this point. Seemed like the right kind of time to do it. In terms of my future projections for what the next few years were going to look like, just sticking it out on my own, we're looking more and more, not disastrous, but just more difficult because the community is growing and growing and growing. I mean, this is something that doesn't, I guess, get talked about a lot in open source. Is as the community grows, the expectations obviously rise, but also your time spent doing stuff you don't necessarily like, which is anything that's not coding and building the community and all that stuff. That all shrinks. So I could kind of see the projections. Things were not going in a direction where me on my own, I was just going to keep enjoying it. I was going to burn out eventually. My other options that included just doing a bootstrap thing, same kind of story. I was kind of getting a bit burnt out on that, and I was pretty sure I wasn't really going to enjoy that. So it was looking like it was probably about the right time to do it, which is why this has sort of happened now. Have you ever considered donating Benthos to a foundation such as CNCF? I absolutely have. I definitely have, especially earlier on. I don't want to talk out of turn, and I don't want to call out any projects in particular, since I've got a bunch of Hacker News drama enjoyers on the stream. I would be cautious about that, specifically because you have a lot of options when you're just somebody on the internet. I haven't struggled to get sponsorships from companies that are using Benthos. It's just never going to be enough to, you know, it's not a Google salary. You're always going to be able to earn more just being a software engineer. But you know, I've been able to get sponsorships. You're always like going for the next one. That's not going to be suddenly not the case just because you joined a foundation, and the foundation isn't going to give you money to just exist. If you're a bootstrap small open source project, they're going to expect you to do a bunch of stuff, And then the idea is that over time you might reach that kind of level. So if you're doing it specifically because you think it's going to bring you income and you'll be able to live off it, that's really not an expectation I would personally have. And what you're giving in exchange is all the rights to any intellectual property around that project and a bunch of other stuff, which you're probably not going to use. Like if you're running an open source project, it might not be a big deal, but it limits what you can do in the future. So for example, if you want to do a bootstrapped startup, not even VC funded, just a bootstrap startup, it might impact your ability to do that in a way that benefits you. And you might find that the agreement that you've got might completely disable you from being able to do that. So you've eliminated potential sources of income, and you're probably not going to be in a situation where you're comfortable. I think it makes more sense for big organizations that want to donate a project because they don't need it. They would rather it be part of a community and it's on the community to maintain it. I think it makes loads of sense then. I just would be cautious if you're an individual or a small group of people who are just doing something in your spare time as a hobby, and eventually you aspire to have it be your source of income. I would be very, very cautious of donating it to an organization. You earned it. My t-shirt flex. Yesterday I had the thought we should really hire that Benthos guy. Then I saw the acquisition. It's difficult because there's been loads of companies that have given me job offers where I would get to work on Benthos as part of the job, but obviously there would be a bunch of other stuff as well. And the problem with that is then I have two jobs, because I don't just stop doing the community and maintenance stuff. I still have to do pull requests and issues, but that's, I'm not going to be able to spend 4 days of my work week doing pull requests and issues and answering questions in the Discord, answering questions in the Slack channels, doing community calls and all that stuff. So I'm still going to have to do that in my spare time. And then I have two jobs, but also I'm not necessarily going to be able to monetize the open source in the same way that I was. So I had all kinds of stuff going on. So obviously I have sponsors, but over time, my situation around giving support contracts out and issue bounties, things like that, those have all kind of kept me going. And if you take a job, you can't do any of that stuff anymore, and you'll lose a bunch of connections or clients that were recurring, that kind of stuff. The sponsors might stick around, but you're gonna have two jobs. I never wanted to have that situation where, I've obviously dabbled in it, but I don't really enjoy having a full job where you have like a full-on responsibility, but also this community is on you exclusively. It's not as if that company has shared the responsibility for maintaining the community and taking all the issues and all that stuff. The best thing I see with CNCF is that companies donate the core product to gain trust of the community and then make a living by selling an enterprise/SaaS offering on top of the OSS core. I think it's pretty common, yeah. I think that I just think that open source hasn't really worked out, and what makes it really difficult is venture capital. Because if venture capital didn't exist, we would only have viable business models, and it would be very clear which ones work and which ones don't. And we would be able to see, okay, well, if you've got a product like Benthos, where it's an actual thing, but you can have your custom plugins and you could build a whole company on Benthos, right? Maybe this is a model that would work. And you can look at that and go, okay, well, this is the cookie cutter way of monetizing that sort of open source project. But then a library, like a JavaScript library, is obviously going to be completely different. And then like a front end engine is going to be completely different, and a game engine is going to be completely different. All these things are completely different. But venture capital muddies that so much, because we will watch an open source project grow over time and be monetized by a company that's venture capital based, and it's only when it fumbles at the end that we realize, oh, actually that business model wasn't viable. But we've spent the majority of our lives, the majority of our experience of that project has been watching it under the guidance of a VC backing, which obviously that's the world we live in. You can't really have a tech company that isn't VC backed unless you're very, very clever, and good for you. But that's just the way it is. Which means I think open source monetization is very, very difficult to analyze from the outside and figure out what actually works and what doesn't, what's sleazy and what isn't, what's the proper way of monetizing an open source project and what isn't. It's always going to be a disaster because we're not seeing people monetizing open source the right way. We're seeing people panic monetize open source when they need to, which sometimes works out, frankly. Sometimes it works great and the community benefits. But obviously it's not representative of what's a successful model. Do you already know which conferences you'll do in 24, 25? I have no idea. I really don't know. I don't know which ones I will be safe at now that there's Hacker News drama. But yeah, probably loads of them, I don't know. I'm going to try and not do too many that are outside of the UK, because obviously I'm UK based, and I don't want to do too much travel away from my kitty, because he's very cute. But if he was ugly, I'd be all over the place. But yeah, I'll try to go to all the Kafka ones that are going to be nearby, and maybe some of the general streaming data engineering ones if I can. I like to go to the London Gophers as well. I did a talk there in Feb, which was fun. I might just go there on a casual basis at some point. I would love a Benthos con. I mean, if we ever do like a big Redpanda thing, then we'll probably have a Redpanda Connect booth, and I'll have a little blobfish to represent. Have you ever talked about your love for naked returns in Go and why you use them so much? Gross. I haven't done a video on that. Maybe I will now. I don't know, I think they're fine. I think it's good. Why would they put it in the language if they weren't good? More often than not, maintainers simply burn out before they can monetize. Thanks for your thoughts. Appreciate your openness. Yeah, 100%. I think that it's so when you look at like successful open source projects, the majority of them come from organizations, right? They'll build something in house, open source it, throw money at it, and it's either something that's driving their like public persona. Or it's a funnel for getting new clients and all that sort of stuff, and it's quite easy to make that work because you can keep you get more and more engineers on them, all that stuff. But the difficult thing is when you're an individual and you're trying to make it work on your own because you don't have that backing of an organization that's kind of like keeping you sane. And giving you other work to do, because you can rotate people. If you're a company, you've got like 10 engineers and you've got an open source project, you probably only need to have like 2 on it at a time, right? Doing the issues and pull requests and stuff like that. So you can have a bit of a pool to let people chill out a bit. Whereas I found if I took holidays from Benthos for more than like a week or so, I would really struggle to work through what I consider to be the backlog of issues and pull requests. In the last couple of years, I got a bit better, and actually I just stopped caring so much and let pull requests kind of sit a bit just for like my sanity. But I wasn't very good at that for the first 5 years of the project. And yeah, it's burnout city, 100%. I probably burnt out like 2 times to the point where I just couldn't work on Benthos. Couldn't do anything. Didn't want anything to do with it. But holidays for me sorted it out, or just like long walks and stuff. But yeah, I would always say that for an individual or a small group of people where they're putting all their time into an open source project. It's the same with like any engineering project where you're kind of like on a constant venture to keep the plate spinning. With an open source community, you have to constantly be engaging with everybody and issues and all that stuff. It's definitely a recipe for burnout, because you feel a personal responsibility as well with open source. You feel like you have to be there and help people. Warpstream Conf. If there's a Warpstream Conf, I'll go if they want to hang out. I mean, at the end of the day, I like those guys. Like, I like them. I've hung out with them, spent time with them. They're all good people. I wish they spent a bit more time understanding the technical side of what's happened here, so that we can all win. I'm very scared of like a full fork that's going to fragment all the community, and plugins are going to be either compatible with one or the other. I think that's just bad for everybody, and it's so simple, it's so easy for them to have a fork where that's not the case. They have full control over all the plugins and all the licenses and everything, and everybody still wins because their plugins work with everything. But I mean, I do like them on a personal level. I'll happily go to their conf and blob them up. I'll bring a bunch of Redpanda swag. We can do a cultural exchange. We'll have to greet them the old way, where you have your hands up and then you shake hands from a distance and you back off with your hands up. Show there's no knives. Christina is shouting out, if you want to do talks in your local meetups, we are absolutely happy to help you with that. That includes stickers explicitly, but I'm sure there's other guidance and stuff like that if you want to do that. I believe that's something that is already a Redpanda special. They'll already help you do that. Get in touch with Christina in the Redpanda community Slack or on the Discord. She's on the Discord as well, I believe. I've been reading the code base over the past few weeks, and they just irk me when I see them. Haha, talking about the naked returns again. I just know some people despise them. I don't have a strong preference, was just curious. I don't think anybody's complained about them before, but I think as well, if I do something horrible, like if I have a horrible habit in the code base, I'm not entirely sure anybody would really tell me, other than a small subset. Dan would tell me. Mihai would probably tell me, actually. George would tell me.
I was like literally this close to saying like, I really hate those things.
Okay, well, you haven't told me up until now, so yeah, he wouldn't have told me apparently. But yeah, I think there's two things, right? You don't want to tell the person running the show that you don't like their code. I guess that's a bit of anxiety around. I don't know, what would you call it? Imposter syndrome, maybe? Well, this guy's got a repo, it's 7,000 stars, of course they know about. But that's obviously not the case.
It's a circle of openness. It's like a support group.
Yeah, which obviously we're just Bantosaurus Rexes and unproductive. Traditionally, the Benthos maintainer group, we are unproductive with our bants. And at meetups, generally, when there's conflict, it's usually because we're just calling each other out on a personal level, not on a technical level. I've been reading the code base. We've done that one. We need swag. You're all getting swag. You're all getting swagged up. There's loads of swag that's going to be circulated. You're going to be drowning in swag. Maybe a Redpanda eating a blobfish. I'd wear that on a shirt. We are definitely looking for tattoo ideas as well. Rob will get it. There's some artwork that has been shared internally. Some AI generated, some hand drawn by me. That might make it into the public eye at some point.
I'm sorry. Did you say a red panda eating a blobfish?
I think there is one. Yeah.
It's pretty violent. Just saying.
It's not. Wait, it does look violent, but it's basically a cuddle. Because if you think about it, a blobfish,
yes,
like a blobfish in its natural habitat, isn't likely to be hugging anybody because fish can't really do that. So if you want to embrace somebody as a fish, traditionally, it's going to be orally. You're orally embracing, if that makes sense. So
I'm going to go cuddle my dinner. I'll be right back.
So if you think about it, what the red panda's doing when it's eating the blobfish violently, it's actually very considerate and a very kind gesture, because what it's doing is it's meeting it at its own culture. So that's how I interpreted it, but obviously other people might interpret it differently. Will Benthos stickers be the currency of the future? I have to say I'm not enjoying the whole bottle caps currency that the big fallout is pushing upon us. So that was already going to be the case, because there's already a limited edition blobfish in the wild. So specifically, there's only a limited number of Professor Benthos stickers. There's a limited number of plugin Benthoses that I've recently been doing the press junket distributing. There was always going to be a Benthos sticker currency. They're not really on eBay. I'm not seeing people trying to flog them online, but I think that's because they're scared of retribution, because they know I'll come after them. But I won't be surprised when I'm long gone. There's going to be a new market for them. But
just cuddle them; it'll be fine.
I'm probably still going to be printing them, no matter what. Take them to conventions and things. And obviously people can print their own Benthos stickers. The logo is not going anywhere, by the way. There was a lot of people concerned about the blobfish, and oh no, what's going to happen to the blobfish? The blobfish still exists. If you go to the Benthos repo, which is MIT licensed, by the way, there's still a blobfish logo, still looks the same, still the same attitude towards people, and general demeanor is the same. And obviously people are free to have swag. There will be there'll be some stuff that I'll bring. I've still got like a whole stack of stickers obviously that I've got to get through, and then I'll probably end up having more as well over time. So the logo has not gone anywhere. Obviously Redpanda Connect is a separate visual, it's a separate multiverse. It's a different Marvel franchise, what do you call them? It's a different cinematic universe. But there's obviously going to be, some crossovers and stuff like that. Don't worry about swag. Don't worry about stickers. Don't worry about logos. I'm still here. Any more questions? Dramas? Anger? Tiredness? It's 9:30 where I am.
I got to get back to support, so let's cut this out.
I'm not doing any support this week.
Overachiever.
I'm drama exclusively now. I'm in drama mode. It's just drama for me for, I'd say, about 7 days, and then I'm going to burn out.
But let's be honest, who reads Hacker News anyway?
Yeah, no one reads Hacker News nowadays. Say in the chat if you came from Hacker News. I'm just wondering how many people just wandered in from the drama. And also, shame on you. I have to say, I do love a bit of fork drama when it's not me in the middle of it. Get off the grid and take some rest. I'm probably going to get a bit of rest this weekend, hopefully. Sounds really, really cynical, but I'm hoping I'm going to get some rest. Depends what. I guess it depends, doesn't it? Because if there's going to be a bunch of drama moving, maybe I'll have to speak up, get some facts straight. Because there's definitely a bit of misinformation making the rounds already. It's been 1 day, which is a bit sad. I did think I was going to be able to do the announcements, get everybody to understand the new repo structure, and then I was going to be able to back away into the shadows and just chill out for a bit, but it does look like they've stepped in a bit quicker than I thought. Not me though. I've been following Benthos before it was cool. It was never cool, and it never will be. You'll always be a nerd. Even my family still think it's stupid.
They're supposed to, though.
Take your money and buy an island somewhere in the Caribbean and burn your phone. I'm still emotionally attached. I wish my island is empty right now and there's no one on it. But I'm too emotionally attached. Ash, please come and tend to your island. It's becoming unsightly. There's too much foliage. You're going to need to come and tend to your private island. So, no, sorry. I'm on Hacker News now. Got to talk about repo structures and licensing.
Yeah, you
Do they
finally
pay you
got
in
your
hacker
wish.
coins?
Or was that Mihai? Mihai first?
You finally got your wish. You're on the front page, trending, almost the first row.
Yeah. For anybody who hasn't been following any of this stuff, I tried so many times to get Benthos or any Benthos related stuff on the Hacker News front page, and it's been on the front page multiple times now. Not a single time when I post it in my own time, when I want it to be there. It's always when somebody else has posted it. And Mihai is also guilty, a guilty party there. I hate social media in its entirety, in anything that's got a bigger audience than 50 is a nightmare. Because you just get
He
drowned
said
out.
while on social media.
Yeah, but we've got perfect number. We've got about 55 people. That's perfect. So you're all getting time to ask your questions and you're not drowning each other out. So it's a perfect number. Whereas if this was the Hacker News equivalent, it would be about 5,000 people all trying to say their own little bit of shtick and drowning each other out, and then some random one gets to the top, and it's not fair.
Yeah, well, the other one, the one that's on number one, is the snowflake breach. So,
Oh, good. I'm glad that's not me. That's why we need enterprise people. That's why we need enterprise support. It's because their licenses were MIT. That's why. They were using products that were GPL. Have we got anybody want any actual questions being answered? Technical stuff they want to talk about? Can I go to bed?
the pull request that I did for nuts, is that still going to go through?
My intention is, so I obviously haven't had time the last couple of days to do pull requests, but
Yeah,
I will try
obviously.
and get to pull requests as soon as possible. I'm not sure how so one thing we've got to work out is, so up until now, by the way, if people are not familiar with Benthos, I just push to main whenever I want. And that's how it's been for like 10 years. Nobody reviews my code. It just goes straight in. And that's how I like it. But obviously, it's a good thing if I get people to review it. And
I
that's
review
obviously
it.
going to include... Sorry?
I review it.
Yeah, okay, Mihai's going to auto-merge everything I raise. But yeah, the idea is that we're going to have a bit more process, but obviously my pull requests are going to be like everybody else's. Yeah, I'm not sure what the structure is going to look like, but I'm going to be working through the pull request as soon as I can. If I still write all my own plugins, does this really affect me anyway? Absolutely not. If you write your own plugins, absolutely not. Especially if you don't import any other ones. If you import any of the old plugins, you're probably fine anyway, because it'll be Apache v2. But if you don't, then it doesn't change anything. Everything that you're using, everything you're interacting with is all MIT, and it will compile into a binary just like all the other plugins that we're putting on the table here as well. And all the old ones as well, if you want to maintain those as well with a separate license, you're free to do that. They'll all still work. There's been no breaking API changes between before and after we broke the repos apart. So everything's still going to work, still the exact same.
Do you have to do a v5 now on the core Benthos such that people like update their import paths? Because otherwise they're not going to get automatically the new version of base, I think, right?
So I think it doesn't change anything, because when you change the import path, it's now a different module anyway. So there's no auto upgrade path in Benthos land. You have to do the set replace of the paths.
Yeah.
So I think basically we're in that situation no matter what. So when I did it, I decided to keep it v4 because technically it still adheres to semantic versioning, because it's a new module anyway. So even though, yes, we've moved some stuff out, it's a completely new module. But if we were going to do it conventionally, what we probably would have done is gone back to v1, because there's a new module, new v1 or whatever. But I wanted there to be some indicator to people who aren't following on all the various docs and blog stuff. If people are just looking at the code base and they're not looking at anything else, I wanted there to be some indicator that the APIs themselves haven't changed. It's just the import paths. So I left it at version 4. We probably will cut a v5 coming up because there's some. So I've already prepped I prepped v5 like probably about 6 months ago, but I didn't want to do that until I'd broken out the plugins. I wanted to get all that work done first. So we're actually unblocked now because of this change in repo structure. We're actually unblocked from doing a v5, which is going to come with some goodies in terms of like performance, maintenance, all that stuff. But it's just not been done yet. But yeah, I didn't see a need to do it when we moved because of that name change, which I might be wrong. I don't know. It's kind of hard to understand Go module versioning, to be honest. Whenever you do something slightly wrong, you're obviously very naughty, but it's not immediately clear from the tooling when that's actually happened. PR for gnats in this economy? Nuts. We'll get it done. So that's why on the the naked returns got in. Let's hope Warpstream will write a Benthos plugin to connect Benthos to Benthos. That would actually be technically possible. Actually, yeah, that would be technically possible, but you'd have to compile it all in. I mean, you can get Benthos to spawn up Benthoses right now if you wanted to. So you could actually have it as like a separate entity. Maybe some spoilers of v5. You can actually already grep the code base and see what would be removed. So because we do semantic versioning and because we take that very, very seriously, a major version release is often very disappointing because we don't actually do any major features because we've already done all the major features. The major version bump is normally to delete deprecated stuff, hence the breaking changes, so that the next wave of cool features could be developed afterwards. And that's how it's historically been. So when I cut version 2, there wasn't really anything to announce because I'd already built all the cool stuff in v1 in a backwards compatible way using the technology as it was. But then I also at the same time figured out what are the things that we need to change and eventually delete in order to get like the next suite of cool features. It's really hard to do that when you're lots of people because having like a cohesive vision of like, what are we going to be building in 2 years' time, whilst you're also working on new stuff today, is obviously quite difficult. But obviously, I was just a person, so I found it quite easy. But yeah, the traditionally when we've done major version bumps, it's been specifically for the person. I'll try and keep that to be the case with the core engine. I'm not sure how we're going to deal with versioning for Redpanda Connect because we're actually probably going to have individual versioning for each connector. Each plugin, so it might make more sense to just have a general version to indicate an update, but then it's on the connectors themselves when a feature is changed. Is RP going to put a swear jar on your desk every time you call connect Benthos? So when I'm talking about the core engine, I'll get away with it, and when I'm talking about it historically, I'll get away with it. But obviously, if I'm talking about Redpanda Connect, then yes, it would be very wrong for me to call it Benthos. But there's no jar. And if there's a jar, I'm screwed. Is there any resources to learn Benthos step by step? Anyone knows of, like on Udemy or something beyond the docs? There's videos. So there's a bunch of different options. So obviously on the doc site, there's like cookbooks and examples that walk you through like a particular use case. But then there's also plugin examples in the organization, like the code base and stuff. And then there's also my YouTube videos for a lot of things. So I've got YouTube videos just walking through like a particular use case where I'll show you like the configs and we'll build them up over the video. And then there's also, so there's some like blog posts and demo programs and stuff. So there's different types of content for different types of people. Some people love the videos and nothing else. Some people hate the videos. But we don't have like an explicit course. That's probably something we're going to end up with now. just because we're going to have more resources for putting that kind of stuff together. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is some sort of Redpanda Connect course in the future. You should let the Kubernetes folks know about this semantic versioning stuff. I think it's just that when your project gets to a certain size, it's really difficult to keep it going, because you think about how much planning you have to do to get semantic versioning to be a success and not have a major version bump every month or so. There's a lot of core, especially when there's a massive surface area for the public APIs that you've got. So a lot of the technical work that I did probably about 4 or 5 years back now, when building and conceptualizing the new plugin APIs, was specifically for the purpose of reducing the exposure of my public APIs so that I was less likely to need breaking changes. I could do things in a gradual, slowly deprecate stuff and build newer stuff on top way. And then you got all the internal stuff that people can't use that you can make all kinds of refactors and breaking changes on that. But it's a lot of effort. When you think about there's a monetary cost to doing that is significant when you're a big team and lots and lots of moving parts, because you all have to coordinate, you all have to agree on what's actually considered a breaking change. When are you going to make the breaking changes? Are you going to pull them all together? How much effort is that going to be? If somebody needs a feature right now and they need to make a breaking change, how are you going to push back on that and say, actually, no, we've got a breaking change in a year's time. That's it. There's lots of stuff that has to come into place. Whereas me, as an individual, I can, have a really great semantic versioning project, and it's nowhere near as much effort because it's all in my head anyway. So I know, oh, well, I can't make a breaking change because I don't want to do that until next year. So I'm going to, do this extra effort on top instead. And there isn't even a conversation being had. It's just me figuring it out as I go. So I don't blame people for not doing semantic versioning. What I would say is it makes me sad when people do adopt semantic versioning and they make breaking changes without a major version, and specifically when it's clear that they only did that because they like the idea of major versions being cool announcements, and they've equated the two, even though that's not how it is. And it makes me sad that, because projects like mine, like Benthos and now Redpanda Connect, it's an absolute disaster when somebody makes a breaking change, because it could be a tertiary dependency that your dependencies are going to pin at different versions at a different time. So you've it's a very, very complicated situation, and it could involve all kinds of upstream conversations with various maintainers and getting them all to coordinate and all this stuff. It can be a lot of time being wasted. I might call it there, people, unless somebody's got an absolute banger of a question. In which case, go ahead. But otherwise, I am probably going to go to sleep. Anything? What do you need to do? Right now, you need to like and subscribe. And if you don't, I'll come and get you. Also, go to the Redpanda YouTube channel as well. Christine does some great content on there. In fact, the whole team does some great content on there. Oh, we got a question. Hey, Ash, now that Benthos is... Forget about all this stuff. V1 beta for all APIs done next. The trick is to always be V0. Yeah. Just YOLO releases. Yeah. I did do that for a little bit. We'll be honest with you. Hey Ash, now that Benthos is multi-licensed, what are your thoughts about that? There are some large companies that highly restrict on open source licenses. So if you've just jumped in, it's probably worth rewatching the VOD once it's available, because basically I've kind of explained how it's broken out. But essentially, if you're an organization that is strict about what licenses you are and aren't allowed to use, you're still covered. Everything still works exactly as it is and has done. The only difference is you're not just pulling in all of Redpanda Connect's components. You'll just want to either import the ones that are a license that you can agree with, or you just have your own maintained versions of the old MIT suite as it was. It'll all still just work because there's been no breaking API changes. We've just moved the repos out. So the core engine is all MIT, so you can just base all of your stuff on that. And everything else will just work, I promise you. I promise you. I'll take you out to dinner if it's not the case.
What's the latest version for those that want to just pull the MIT repo?
The latest one that was all MIT is 4.27. And yeah, all you need to do is basically just copy paste those plugins, stick them in a repo, rename the import github.com/redpandadata/benthos instead of benthos dev, and you'll have the latest version of the engine, the latest all the goodies. You can even cherry pick a few of the Redpanda Connect connectors if you want them. Or you could even have a fork of Redpanda Connect if you want to use the enterprise features if you want that license. But you can have your own binary with your own stuff in it. It'll all just work. It's all like magic. It's just fine, and you will only be interacting with MIT licensed stuff. The only question is who's on the hook for maintaining those components. If you're relying on Redpanda to maintain those connectors, then it's going to be Apache v2, except for the two that are enterprise license, but the vast majority of them are going to be Apache v2, which should be fine for people, I think. I don't see why that would be an issue. Yeah, you can always just have your own plugins, or if somebody else is maintaining them, some other organization is already maintaining them, you can just use theirs if it's the license that suits you. It will all continue to compile as long as people base their plugins on the MIT Benthos core engine and not a fork, because as soon as we start having forks of that engine, that's when people's plugins can't coexist. You'll have to pick one and you're stuck with that specific suite, that specific engine's features, and not the other one. And that's when we get the fragmentation. But right now it's an MIT core engine. It's whatever plugins you want to include in that engine. It's up to you, but obviously the ones that Redpanda Connect have got are Apache v2, except for those two enterprise ones. We're also going to, I did mention this at the beginning of the video, but the abridged version is we're going to try and rework the way that the modules exist in that repo. So if you're importing them individually, you can actually see in the Go package docs what the specific license is for each one of those. But it's a bit of a maintenance task for me to go and actually do all that stuff. So hopefully I'll get it done soon, but I'm not making any promises. I'm too involved in this Hackanese drama. I'm commenting and fighting the good fight, and oh my god, it's so much drama. Is there anything in Redpanda Connect at the moment that was not in Benthos before? Yes, there is. Yes. So obviously this is the baseline. This is what we could get done before the announcement. But obviously we wanted to have all this stuff laid out and licensed how we're going to have it in the future, which means it's a bit chicken eggy. But yeah, there's already some functionality on top of Redpanda Connect, specifically around. So one of them is we've got a logger. So there's a new config section at the root of your config, and you can actually push your logs to a Kafka topic automatically. So that's in combination with your normal logger. So you can have a log level of, say, like info on the instance itself, so it's printing info logs to stand it out, but then you also send your logs out to a Kafka topic to be aggregated somewhere else. That's like a nice little feature that we're kind of tacking on as like a Redpanda Connect special. There's obviously going to be lots more specials that are just basically nice to haves for observability stuff. And you can probably guess it's usually going to be people who've got Redpanda running already, but there are obviously going to be things that you don't need. The kind of like add-ons. But the core engine stays the core engine. It's always going to stay that, and it's always going to be MIT, all that stuff. I'm going to call it there because I'm worried if I keep instinctively asking for questions, I'm going to keep getting questions. So if you do have more questions and you're sad and lonely after the stream has ended, remember to like the video, remember to subscribe, and everything will be better. And then also join us on the Discord, and you can ask questions asynchronously, and they will be answered at some point by somebody, maybe. There's also the Redpanda Slack, where you will also find me, and you'll find all the other Red Pandas. And there's probably a bunch of other stuff that I'm supposed to remember, but I'm too tired. So thanks everybody for joining the stream. Hopefully that's been relatively clear, but let me know in the comments if there's other stuff that you want clarifying. I'll be making more content, more videos to explain all this stuff, giving people guides and tutorials and all that stuff in the future. So thank you for being here again, and peace out. Even the haters.